All right.
It's all about Dennis today.
No, it's all about table saws, but the description should have said, this is how Dennis uses a table saw. So there's that disclaimer right now. So what I did was, I made some nice notes here so that'd be good for you guys. And what I did is I have this saw at home. So I brought my fence and my stuff in just so you can see how I live. Did any of you see the promotion on the Magswitch Quicklox system? You know, I filmed that in my garage, so that's how I live. That's my shop. But I brought some of that stuff in so you could see what I do, and we'll kind of go through some of that. And what you're seeing here is the first thing, I made a tray for my fence so that I can, you know, there's just stuff in there. You always need stuff. So, I mean, there's Allen wrenches in there because there's always something that's got to get tightened or loosened. So I keep that in there. My angle finder for the blade, that's all accessible there. There's always a screwdriver in there, a couple of pencils. I use this a lot. This is Dado Stop Pro. I'm not going to do a deep dive into this, but the one thing that I really like about this is that's 3 inches. So when I change blades and stuff, I always grab this to calibrate that fence. It seems like a silly way to use it, but I do. And again, I'm not going to do a deep dive on that today, but it's nice for setting up dados and especially half laps, I think. So there's just a clamp here for whatever I might need for that, actually. I use stock guides on my fence, these Jessom stock guides, and you're going to see how that works in a minute. These are, you can never have enough featherboards and such. So I have, you know, you've all heard me talk about the grippers and such. And I use the gripper to go a lot. I use the gripper if I'm doing something narrow and I need a lot more security and safety there as I'm pushing that little thin strip through the blade. But I use this a lot, this push block. And the sad thing is you can't get them anymore. I don't know why, but I use this in quite a bit. I do have a little storage thing that I made. Fits that. It's got a 6-inch ruler and a 12-inch ruler and a couple of magnets on the bottom so it just sticks to my rail. And then this is, I think it's for my Incra miter fence. I think is why that's sitting there.
It is. I remember, because you told me that.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yep.
Well, you should be the one doing this.
No.
So the other thing is you all have heard me talk about the universal Magswitch featherboard. I love that thing. And some of this you'll start to see me use as we go. I always have this. Kim doesn't know that I have this until now. He thinks, he thought, he was enjoying himself because he thought I didn't have one. It was something I didn't have. And so all the time he's talking about it, oh, I got to get one of these. I already had it. But it was so fun to hear him think that I didn't have it. Yeah. But I use this quite a bit if I'm going to resaw. So, and I'm going to do that, so you'll see that in use. And one other thing I wanted to show you is these. I got these. They're Kreg's setup bars. And the reason I bought them was because I'm building this cabinet here. And it's, I don't know, it's a project that's 20 years in the making, and I just finally got the courage to start it. It's pretty involved in my way of thinking, and so everything needs to be just so. And I thought these would be a good addition, and I've used them quite a bit to set blade width and depth. So that's why they're there. Oh, I haven't used this one yet, you can see, but it's another type of push block. And the one thing that I don't use is the push block that comes with the saw. You know those little push sticks? Man, they don't put enough downward pressure on that board, enough of that board for me to feel safe. So the other thing that's laying here is, I'll just open it real quick. It's just stuff. I record on every project. I write stuff down, and especially since I've been doing stuff with the shaper, I always document what I'm doing, write down settings and stuff, and because some of that stuff I'm going to come back and do again, and maybe that helps me. So, so let me just say right off the bat, when you're working, if you're going to do something to the saw, unplug it. Unplug it. Unplug it. Okay. So that said,
So what you're saying is unplug.
unplug it.
Okay.
But the SawStop has that power switch, and once you hit that switch, it powers off. And I'm comfortable with that. So that's what's going to happen today. But I need you to know that you should unplug your saw. Okay? So I won't harp on that anymore. Let me just real quick show you how those stock guides work, and then I'm going to switch fences, and then we'll get on to the rest of this. So these stock guides, you just pull them out. You drop it down. There's a flat right there. You drop that down till that touches, lock it down, and now it's set. So I'm going to push that through. Once it gets to there, it can't lift up, and it actually pulls it into the fence a little bit. And a lot of times I'll just use one and not both of them, and that's what I'm going to do today. But I will pull it back a little bit more toward the blade. So let me just do this real quick. The other thing is hearing protection is always good. These I like because they're Bluetooth and I can listen to music, or if I have the TV going, which I do a lot of times just for background noise, I can hear it. So no music today though. Where we at, Dennis? You be a little careful, this is coming at you. So that's how the stock guides work, and I just love them. I needed to do that because I need these two pieces at home for something I'm working on, but we don't want Kim to know.
So those stock guides, they hold it down and they
pull it in. Mm-hmm. So if I'm doing any wide cuts, mostly plywood and such, but sometimes even a wide hardboard, I will use those just because they're another set of hands for me, and that's a big deal. So they work good. They're really pretty darned expensive. I hate to say that, but they are. But for me, they have paid for themselves. I've used them quite a bit.
They mount on a rail then that you...
They mount on this rail, and that rail gets screwed into the top of your fence. So let me just swap this fence out. Oh, safety glasses. These are safety glasses, but you always want to do that. And sometimes I will, I wear glasses on top of glasses. If I'm feeling really sketchy about something I'm doing. So let me just pull this off. I love this thing. Works good. There we go. So we're back on to...
When you put that track on top of the fence for those hold downs, did you have to, you should have like a sheet metal screw or something going in the top, or did you thread it, or?
No, it's not threaded. I think it came with some sort of sheet metal type screw. So I drilled a small pilot hole and then...
Just able to drive the screw.
Yeah.
Do you ever take that off? Or
No,
all the time?
It is all there all the time. And to be honest with you, it can get in the way a little bit from time to time, and we're going to get into it here in a minute, where sacrificial fences and such, what I have to do when I'm doing that is I have to just take the stock guides off, because they slide off. They got 2 nuts on each, and you just slide them off the front or the back and set them aside, and then I can use my sacrificial fence. So, all right. Another thing I wanted to mention, since we're right here right now, is this is another thing that just came out with Magswitch a while back. It's called a vertical featherboard. So you can move that along your fence, lock it down, drop your featherboard down to what you need, and then you've got another featherboard. And that becomes pretty darn handy, again, when you're running something through. You don't want that board lifting up. So it's been a nice addition. I use it quite a bit here in the shop. It won't work for my fence at home just because of that Jessamine stock guides that I have. So it doesn't fit mine, but it works good here. Because I do a lot of breaking down plywood and cutting long lumber in half and whatnot for the store. So it's been a nice addition too.
I think the hold downs are something that's overlooked quite a bit, honestly. And I've heard that a lot of the people who have cut a finger or lost a fingertip or whatever, that's what's happening is the board rides up.
Yeah.
They go to push it down.
Yep.
And they just come back down on top of the blade.
Yep.
So
it gets pretty
sort of
queasy.
Like if you can get yourself into like, I have to have something there.
Yeah.
It's just a good thing.
Because otherwise you're going to be,
You have a SawStop because
oh, yeah.
you want to kill a break.
Because you're pushing that through. Your hand's right here because you're trying to keep that down. So the closer you can get this, the less, yeah. So it's been a nice thing. I use it quite a bit when I'm, again, the one thing that just, so a lot of times I'll have it like about right here. And it's down like this. And I'm ripping a board. Let's say this is 5 inches wider than it is. And I'm going through there. And I end up using my push stick. I always, I get to about there and I think, okay, let go. Well, gosh dang it. It's not past the featherboard. And you would think that the smart thing would do would be to just move this back, but that's not how the brain operates all the time. You know, so sometimes I'll get it caught and it'll be out there, and then I do have to get around, but anyway, it's a nice tool.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Ripping something down small like that, will that also keep if your piece, like you get a cut, a narrow piece coming off, and it doesn't like shoot off the table?
It's not going to shoot off the table this way. That's going to hold it. That's going to keep it from coming back at you, if that's what you're talking about.
No, I have one go shoot off the other way, and it's like,
Oh, you did?
yeah.
That won't necessarily stop that, but I would certainly think it would. It shouldn't do that. Which brings up another thing that I didn't bring up, Dwayne, is the blade guard. You know, they come with blade guards. You should use your blade guard. You should use your blade guard.
That laugh was agreement, not.
Everyone should use the blade guard. And I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm really not. Because I have one on my saw. I have the overarm dust collection on mine, so it's slightly different than the one for this one. And I use it, and it's great. But then I go to like an 1.5 inch piece of lumber that I got to rip to 3/4 or 1/2 inch or whatever, and that blade guard gets in the way, and so I take it off. And then I don't get it back on. So, you know, that's a fault of mine, but I'm pretty comfortable when I think I'm pretty focused when that blade's running. I'm pretty much paying attention to what I'm doing, so I'm pretty comfortable operating without it. Sometimes it's kind of nice. It'll help with the dust collection some, which when it isn't there, you know, you do have dust throwing up. But anyway, use your blade guard, okay? Let's go into, real quick here, there's an Outfeed table, which that's what I have at home. And I just never operate without it. It's just, it's nice to have. It's easy to build. It's got, make sure if you do one to accommodate the miter slot. So, and to be honest with you, on mine, that's another work surface in my shop. Because a lot of times the way my shop is situated, that ends up being a sanding station, because just the way I keep my shop arranged and the tools. And so anyway, that makes for another surface. The Infeed table, you know, Kim and I got to talking about that and figured out how to, that all came about because of the epoxy table, didn't it? Mm-hmm. And we needed a way to if you need to cross-cut something that's made more than probably 11.5 inches, you're really going to need something, because that you just don't have enough table width there. So that's where that come into play. And I use it all the time if I'm breaking down bigger pieces of lumber. Denny needs help, and this is help. So it makes it pretty nice for getting the sheet on, and then, because if it's a bigger sheet and I'm here alone, I just got to get it on there and then start pushing so that it's angled that way. And that's where this comes in handy, or I'm going to show you those board buddies in a minute. They come in handy for some of that too, because again, it's another set of hands.
How big an Outfeed or Infeed? I see what your size is. Is there a reason for that size? Is that because of the room you're in, or is there a certain size?
No, 12. This is, I think, 12 inches wide, and that's about as comfortable as I am as far as leaning over. Because I mean, maybe if you were 6 foot or something, maybe you could get another inch or two. I don't know, but at some point, it's a safety thing. You just can't be leaning that far over the thing. And that's enough for everything that I've had to do. Because the other thing that happens is if I get in a real jam and there's no one that can help me, there's also, I can get a roller stand or something back on this back side and get that lifted up, and now I've got a second surface, and then I can push through. So there's always ways to do things. And just to bring that up, that Boris stand, you know, that goes out ahead of that Outfeed table. And it comes in way handy. If you're doing an 8-foot board, you kind of need that. You don't want to just depend on this to hold that thing as it's done past the blade. So that's kind of nice. I don't like that one very well. I kind of like, I have a Rockler one like the store has out there that in my mind is a little bit sturdier. I mean, I know it's more money, but it's sturdier. Listen, if that board is kind of cupped a little and it starts to, and it catches that roller, it can push it. So it becomes a little bit of an irritation for me, but that said, it is definitely better than nothing. So you need something out there. I don't like to badmouth it, but
The Laguna.
oh, those rollers, that's what I use a lot. But I use those, you know what he's talking about, the Laguna conveyor belt rollers. You can use those on a table saw too, absolutely. I end up, most of the time, that's in front of the planer, in front of the planer or the drum sander for me, but that'd be a better bet, and I'm not so certain. Did we all hear that he thought that'd be good in the shop? Did I hear that?
I think I heard it.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
There we go. So
where's it at, is what you're saying?
it's the same thing as being here. Next week you're gonna see that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold
Be
him.
right back.
I'm gonna hold him to it. So
Find one.
We just got a bit.
yeah. So, but they are a nice thing.
Have you ever done like adjustable height things? My dad suggested, I haven't done it, is he found some heavy duty standing desk things, and he used a small bench as his outfeed, but his floor wasn't super level and it was sort of handy. So
Yeah,
he's been
yeah,
doing
it could
I
be.
haven't,
I've seen shops that have those and they look handy. I mean, this one's adjustable. It's just that sometimes that board is, it's cupped a little and I got the cup down instead of up, and so that was my point on that was. And another nice touch is this right here. It's just another surface. I mean, if you're cutting 4-foot lumber, it's kind of nice to have something out there. We just happened, I got lucky here. We had, when we moved from the old store to the new, we moved everything, and we had an extra bench, and it ended up in the shop, and it was really kind of in the way, but yet it was useful. But it was useful less than it was in the way. So one day I just cut it, I just measured and I cut it and thought, okay, that's what we're doing. So I just made a side table using that. Now I have one of these at home, but mine is just a 3/4 inch Baltic birch, which works just fine for me because I don't use it very often, but it's handy when it's there. But I really use it in this shop because of what I'm doing here. But also, just sometimes it's another work surface. So I'll be hammering on this thing, or I might be sanding, or whatever. So it just makes for another work surface. If you have the room, that might be something that you might want to think about.
Well, I find it's handy too if you're ripping like 8 boards that are a couple feet long.
Yeah,
You can rip.
gives you a place to,
Rip.
yeah, it gives you I do that all the time too. Let me pull this off real quick, because before I get into anything else, I'm going to show you one more thing here. So let me pull this off real quick. These are handy. They're easy enough to make and really quite useful. And this is,
plans for them.
yeah, and this is one thing that where I tend to not put a blade guard on, I'll use this. So let's get that out of the way for a moment. The other thing I wanted to show before we get into cutting and stuff is you know the saw has a bypass system on it. So if you're cutting wet lumber, or you think that it might have metal in it, if it's an old board or something and you don't scan it for metal or anything, but it's mostly the wet lumber is where you'd probably find it the most. There is a bypass system, so I'll show you how that works just so you know, and then we'll go on. So, is everyone familiar with the SawStop, pretty much? So there's a key down here. Oh, I'm going to turn that key. I'm going to flip the switch. Actually, I needed to have the power on first, sorry. So we'll let it power up. You can see I turned the switch off. All right, so now I want to bypass the system. So I'm going to turn the key. It's going to blink. Now I'm going to turn it on. It's going to blink again. And now it's in bypass mode. So the brake is off. The nice thing about this is, so if you were to cut something that had metal in it, it's not going to fire off that brake. But the nice thing is once you shut that off, it defaults back to being on. So you have to do that every single time you want to bypass that system, which is kind of nice. Here's the, I don't know if you've probably seen these out in the store too. If I remember right, this one's Kim's.
Yes, it happened to me once.
And actually, I think you were,
What did I do?
you cut metal, didn't you? Did you
Well,
run
the
it?
first thing I did was call Dennis. I was like, I don't know what to do here.
So that's what happens if you fire that thing off. Now, I have fired mine off twice at home, and both times it's a deal to get it out. I mean, it takes a little bit. But the interesting part of that is I fired that off, and then I got it out of the unit, and I looked at that. You can tell pretty much where that brake or that blade enters the brake and where it stops. On both times, that blade hasn't rotated no more than a quarter of a turn. And it's over in the blink of an eye. I mean, it's over before your brain even knows what happened. So it's a great technology. But anyway, that's how to override the system. I just wanted you to know that. We're not going to be doing that today, but
So I remember mine, I was cross-cutting with an aluminum fence on the miter gauge, and I had it too far over.
Yep.
And so I made the cut, it nicked that fence, and boom, it went down. And I didn't even realize what happened at first. It was just bam, you know.
yep, it happens in the blink of an eye.
And it was just a tiniest nick in the fence, which was pretty
That's the way it is with mine. I didn't actually show these, but
I appreciate you mentioning just a tiny nick.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
your
it
finger.
saved the, well, and it saved the fence too, really.
I can't even see the, I don't even remember now where it was. I can't feel it. Oh, there. I don't remember where it was, but I was doing the same thing. I was doing this, and I had spun the blade like this, tightened it up. I went like this, looks good. And I did that, and man, the moment it hit that aluminum, just like that, and I thought, ah, crap.
Does it make a pretty good noise?
Bang.
Yeah, but again, it's over before your brain even can say, yeah.
Is it pretty tough to get that blade off there after that happens?
It can be. I'll go back. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I saw on an 80 tooth blade, it took 60 of the teeth off
Oh, really?
and we got stopped.
See, I've never done, now mine, I'm just using the Woodworker too. So mine has always, it's no more than a quarter of a turn.
Depends, most of them it does, but on an 80 tooth down at the resort where I go, we got all saw stops, but on an 80 tooth blade on one, it took 60 of the teeth off.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, it ruins the blade, obviously, and of course the brake is shot, so.
And that's a question we get from a lot of people is, can I, 'cause sometimes you pull the blade out and it looks fine. A lot of people are like, can I reuse the blade?
No.
My advice is no.
SawStop says no.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you might be able to, but as fast as those blades spin, I mean, I don't want a piece of carbide flying off in
Oh, man.
the middle of a cut, so.
So in order
What
to,
you were doing with one of them, you said you had 2 brakes. What were you doing with the other one?
oh gosh, I knew.
That's the funny one. Right?
Oh, that's a
'Cause
funny.
you didn't even know what you did.
Funny. You know,
Else's
I wasn't gonna bring it up just because I had originally told you I'm really pretty careful. But I was doing rips, and I had an 1.5 inch wide piece of stock that I wanted to rip down. It was 3/4 inch stock that I wanted it at 3/4 by 3/4. So I was ripping this stock through, and I was using my gripper, but I'm pushing that through, and then I did this. To tell me you've never done that.
Oh, not once, not once.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that's what I did, and I must have drug my hand like we drag our feet, because all of a sudden, just like that, it was done. And I said, no metal, no metal. I didn't hit metal. I knew I didn't hit metal. So I get to looking, and I got 10 of them. It's all good. And then I get to looking, and I think it was this index finger here. There was the slightest indication of what I thought was a paper cut. And I don't know. So I squeezed it, and a little blood came out. Now, son of a buck, I must have touched that blade. That's the only thing I can think of.
That's amazing though, you didn't even notice you touched it.
Yeah.
No.
He didn't even know.
And so I went in, I got to finish the story. I go in and pour a little peroxide on it, and then put a Band-Aid on it, and then I had to come to the store, had to buy another blade and brake, and I was back in the shop, and it was about 1.5 hours, and I was going again.
Let's say, so is it fun to come in here and buy they all know what happened, right? Like, oh, Sally,
Yeah, well, I-
you need a backup.
Now, when the brake went off on me, that's when you came in, you kind of went through how to get it off there, because you got to pull that pin on the brake,
you do.
and you just kind of have to just work it real slow.
That's why this is laying here.
And the blade are coming off together.
Yep,
One piece.
yep. Read your manual. Don't lose the manual. So the thing you're going to want to do is it's drop down. You have to, I think it's raise it and then lower it again, and then it automatically, I don't remember what well, let me just read it to you. I was smart enough to mark the
I'm
page.
really impressed, the guy with an instruction manual nearby.
Yeah.
It says turn the elevation hand wheel counterclockwise until the lower elevation limit stop is reached. The arbor block will automatically engage the retraction bracket, and now you're back in business. So you have to lower it. It goes down, but you have to, I guess, lower it, and then you can raise it back up, and you've reset that device. So then it's a matter of, there's a pin in there. You got to pull that pin out. And what I found a couple of times, well, I've only done it twice, but that said, we've done it twice here. So
Dave was the other one, right?
Yeah, Dave owns it too. So, anyway, you have to get it off the arbor and out of that, and that brake out of its pins simultaneously. So what I've had to, a couple of times I've had to take a screwdriver or a pry bar and just gently move it on the top and then get around on the bottom and just wiggle it a little bit. And there reaches a point where all's good and you can just go ahead and get it out. But when that happens, you know, just be careful. And if it takes an hour to do that, it takes an hour to do that. You just don't want to rush that, because you don't want to damage those, you don't want to damage the arbor either, but you don't want to damage the electronics on that where that brake plugs in. So
on brakes, there's, I don't know how many guys, well, I'm assuming we all watch YouTube, but the guy that does bourbon moth woodworking, Jason, he did, it was probably a half an hour or 40-minute YouTube video on SawStop brakes and what actually sets them off. And he did everything known to man using wet wood that he soaked in a pond he had in his yard overnight to make sure it was wet.
Yeah.
And none of the wet wood, including the stuff he bought at the lumber yard, set the brake off. And he bought all the brakes himself. This wasn't a SawStop thing. So it may or may not set the brake off, but always err on the side of caution.
Yep.
Just assume if you're cutting wet wood, and we've all had wood from the lumber yards you can wring out.
Yeah.
You know, and
The shrinking wood, the shrink wood?
yeah. You know, 2 days later.
8-ish feet.
2 days later, when it dries out, it's kind of like that. You know.
Yeah, we had a client who, their company just down the road, I can't remember what they do, but they wanted an industrial SawStop, but they were cutting these panels that had a certain amount of carbon fiber in them.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were wondering, well, will it set it
I
off?
think she used that too.
So what we did is we did number one, we did a test for them, but before we turned the saw on, you can push that material up to the blade, and if it
Light
starts
trigger,
flashing,
right? It flashes.
it's gonna go off, and that's before the saw is on.
Yeah.
So I had some carbon fiber material that I'd made up for the boat project, and I was gonna rip it, and so I tested it on the blade, and sure enough, boom, 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 it was, so I had to turn that whole system down,
Yeah.
make the cut, and then
there are times where you don't do this at home, but there have been times where I'm looking at and the light's on, but I want to make sure that it's off. I've gone in and I've touched that blade, and I'll look and see that it's blinking, and it is. So then I'll shut that off, and then I'm going to touch it again, and I look and it's gone. So sometimes I just feel like I need to double check that, but I do trust this saw and that switch.
yeah, here's another example that I thought was kind of interesting. This is that loose tenon jig that we have. Well, I had to add a dust collection bracket on it, so I had to trim this front part down for it to clear. So I didn't even think about how I built it and stuff, but I set the saw up. And if you can see right there, you see those little metal pins? Those are little nails. So it cut it without going off. So
It can happen.
It's a fine line.
Yeah, it is.
I cut it not even knowing that those nails were in there, and it was okay.
But I touched aluminum one time and
Yeah.
it's off, and you can't even tell where I touched the aluminum. It doesn't seem fair.
Most of the guys that come in and are replacing brakes, it's usually an aluminum fence. So, you know, if you've got an aftermarket miter gauge, just make sure it clears the fence before you cut it.
Another thing, if you're into segmenting, like making segmented bowls, those little pieces, people try to use a pencil, and that little band will set that off.
Oh, I never thought about that.
And so what we do for safety too is take a pencil eraser, you know, that you buy at the store to put on the end of your pencil,
Yeah.
And take a 5/16 dowel and you can make it 8, 10 inches long, so you got reach. But put that eraser on there and then you got something,
Oh,
Good idea.
that is a good idea,
but it'll set it off.
because I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have taken a pencil before and
Yeah. but
just,
it'll-
I've just done that to
Yeah.
move something out of the way. Never really thought about that.
You can send those in to SawStop, and they can tell you if it's a
I-
save or you got any metal or what.
Yeah, and I should have done that when I got my finger in there, but I was just too embarrassed. See, now that's not,
It's not true.
it isn't now, but I'm not gonna, you've already told me, I already heard it now, so, yeah,
Don't feel compelled to test.
no, I'm good now, we're not doing that.
We're not doing the hot dog test today, Dennis?
Well, we could have done that, but has everybody changed the blade? Or have you not changed the blade? Because it's kind of interesting that I had a guy come in, he was wanting to do drawers. And he was going to do through half-line dovetails, and that turned into a can of worms, and he said, I can't do it. So he says, he was looking for a router bit. And I said, well, you could do that. I'd done that. Works good. But what I really like is I like using my box joint set and cutting a rabbet and doing that. And, oh, yeah. So I invited him back. And so in the whole process, he had a new saw. He hadn't changed a blade or a brake yet. So he was concerned about that. And that's why he was thinking router table. So anyway, that's why I asked if you knew. Because not everybody has. So we're going to get that riving knife out of there. We'll grab the tools.
So how many times do you nick your knuckles on that? Hopefully not too many.
No, but you know what really sucks? Is dropping that nut. Oh, gosh.
Or the washer.
Or the washer.
The magnet. I love it.
This happens to be a Woodworker 2 thin kerf blade, and they always suggest using a blade stiffener when you're using that, so that's what I just took off there. That's going to pull out. Then, can you get back in there and see that? The pin gets pulled out, you rotate that pin clockwise, I guess it is, pull it out, and now you can just remove that brake. It comes straight out, and as luck would have it, it worked. So, because when I was doing that with that gentleman on that was wanting to do the drawers, for whatever reason, I pull that pin out, and I can't get the pin out, and I'm working, and this never happens, David. This never happens, but it's happening now. I'm sorry, man, and he doesn't care. He just wants to know it's going to work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the box joint set. So the brake goes in first. There's a pin down there that goes through this hole, and then that's going to allow this connection to work. I mean, it can only go in one way. And there it goes. The pin goes back in there. I just have to take a finger and feel for that hole, get it in there, and then rotate it, and it's locked in there. So that's good. My favorite set of blades, I love these. The box joint cutter set. Of course, you've all heard me talk about box joints and stuff, so I do that a lot. So yep. I'm going to set them in there. There it goes. Put that washer back in there. Put the nut in there, hope I don't drop it. Thank you, Lord. So there we go with that.
Are those 8-inch blades?
They are. Yeah, you can't use I don't think you can use a 6 or 6.5 inch blade on this. The brake won't work. And just so you know, because we did have somebody ask about this, thinking that they were going to bypass that, but it won't. The saw won't operate without a brake in there. So
Is it a different brake for the Dado stack versus a ripping blade?
it is. I should have pointed that out to you and didn't. I'm sorry, but there's that's for a standard blade. The Dado blade is probably about that wide. And it's configured a little bit different because it's an 8-inch instead of a 10-inch, so it's got to come, so it's a little bit different shaped. You can never have enough table saw inserts. I think this is the one I want. I keep several.
How about this routers? You have 5.
He just keeps 5 table saws. He doesn't ever change it.
You know, Dennis, he's been amazingly quiet today.
I must have 5 of these pups. So thank you for pointing that out.
Gotta have 5 everywhere.
Well, you don't have to, but life is infinitely better with 5 routers and enough table saw inserts. That's all there is to it. So that's how you change a blade. Now, let's say, for example, I want to, oh, here's another little tip for you. If I can get this off. I'm a big fan of these rare earth magnets. So, and that's going to just clip on down on the front of the saw, and then I know where it is. So I do that to a lot of my tools. If there's a wrench or something that I need, like on the drum sander and the planer, I'll get a couple rare earth magnets and I attach the wrench to it. Then I got the wrench. You don't have to go find it. Okay, now what I want to do, I thought I'd just show you how to do a sacrificial fence and then we'll run a rabbit. Let me just set the blade height quick. So I go up and then I go down. There we go. Do this here. So what I'm going to do is I want to cut a rabbit. That's a small rabbit. So I need a sacrificial fence because I'm going to bury that blade just slightly under that. If I were using a stacked dado, obviously I'd probably bury it a little further. And if you want, we can cut a dado in a while. And what I'm going to do is move this over. I need to plunge that down to create that pocket. All right. So on with the saw. I'm going to spin it up. Just drop this down and then I'll just shut the saw off and then I'll finish clamping it and it'll be ready to go. All right. If I were to buy another insert and need another insert that I needed 0 clearance to, I would just do the same thing I did here, in that I would take that fence, put it over the insert, and then slowly raise that blade up through. That's how you generate that and safely, is just use your fence. Okay, so let me run a rabbit here. Let's see here. Is this going to work? I don't think it does with that then. So what I'm going to do is use my gripper to go. I'm just going to run a rabbit quick and just give you an idea. Whoops, forgot to tighten. There we go. So let's do that real quick, and you just whoops. So that's how I run a rabbit. And then if I needed a deeper, if it needed to be a deeper rabbit, obviously I'd either run this twice, which I've done that before. Sometimes I just love this blade set. And if I'm not doing a bunch of them, I generally just do it this way, and then I adjust to fit and make a second cut. But if you're doing a bunch, you know, a Dado set works great too. It's just a matter of, I just don't use my Dado set as much as I used to since I have this blade set.
It's nice flat bottom too.
Yep, yep. So that's how to run a rabbit with that. Something Kim was asking about, and I didn't actually point it out, is there is a setting back here, and I'll just show you here.
Yeah, I went to use stacked Dado set.
Oh yeah,
Couldn't
yeah.
get the saw to turn on, and I couldn't figure out what was going on there. So it got a hold of Dennis, and he explained it. He'll run through that.
So what happened? What he's talking about is he put a stacked Dado set on, and then he tried to run it, and the electronics just isn't letting him. I think it did, and it didn't, or did it just not do it at all?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, because I run into this when I first got my saw, and turns out with the Super Dado, which is what I have, that's all solid metal. Each blade is all solid metal. So I got to where when it's 3/4 and 13/16 inches wide, there was so much metal mass there that it was throwing off the electronics. I had to call SawStop, and I'm in a panic, you know, and no, everything's okay, it's okay, you're gonna be okay. I got thousands of guys out there using the Freud Dado set. Oh, okay. He says, well, what you need to do is just back that brake off a little bit. So if this is the blade and this is the brake, and it's like this, he said back it off. Now I've exaggerated, but he back it away from the blade just a little bit. He said try 1/4 of a turn. So I did, and turns out 1/4 of a turn is what it took. And then after that, it's lickety split. But I think from a SawStop standpoint, the fact that I adjusted that brake back, even though I'm exaggerating here, it's now further away from the blade than it was. So now it's taking longer to hit the blade when it fires. And so it's all milliseconds, but to a lawyer, it not always just so.
I'm on the defense side. That's fast in my.
So anyway, that was what happened, and that's what happened to Kim. So once we adjusted that brake, and there's a little yellow screw there, And if you rotate that one way or the other, clockwise is bringing it up toward the blade. Counterclockwise moves it away from the blade. And there's only so much motion that that screw has anyway. And they always suggest that you use the tip of this and pinch that, or not pinch, but put that in between the brake and the blade. And when that just barely touches, you're correctly set. Now, after you've done that a half a dozen times, you know, you pretty well get a sense of. So I used it in the beginning, don't use it anymore, but like I said, and there's really very little adjustment there between the standard brake and the Dado brake.
Did you do that the first time you put your Dado stack in?
Absolutely. I was doing everything I thought by the letter of the law, and then, oh man, when it didn't work, I'm telling you, I was panicked. You know, I was, because it was about a week, literally a week out of warranty. And I hadn't had occasion to use the Dado brake, and I thought, oh my God, guys, I said, my guess is this never has worked, never has worked. He says, nah, you're okay, you're okay.
Well, I have a question. If you make that adjustment for the Dado blade, is that an adjustment that's also made for the regular blade?
Yeah, when I put that regular blade back in, I will check that again,
Okay.
and it will almost certainly have to be adjusted. Yep.
Okay.
It'll be a slight adjustment, but it'll be an adjustment. Yep.
Do you have to do that between even blade changes, like if you're going from a red blade to a cross-cut blade or combo blade, should you check it then?
I check it every time I put a different blade in. I don't necessarily check it with the yellow tool. It's a visual thing for me, but I can tell by looking down there just about how far away that is, and I know that it's okay.
That's good to know.
So, yeah, I don't do that every time. Another thing I wanted to harp on, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get this blade off again. I think that's what I'll do. Is that okay, Mike? Gonna take this blade off? I did. Thank you very much. I did.
Okay, I hate to have to leave because you cut your finger.
I know.
So I'd have to take over.
That'd make a good video now, wouldn't it? Get a lot of views.
Yeah, you would.
Oh,
You should. You should.
This is how not.
We learn in lots of different ways, right?
see? There you go. There's always a silver lining. Well, you've been listening, haven't you?
I went to school, I listened a lot, but I didn't do many yet.
And actually, it doesn't take long to do any of this. And I find myself changing blades quite a bit because I can never get myself completely organized. And I'll think, ah, doggone it, now I gotta go back to that other blade. You know, and you think you thought it through, but you didn't. Does that ever happen to you guys?
Again, never, not once, really. Dennis, how often do you use a specialized blade for your particular task versus like a pulp?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I use this box joint set a lot. Because I like box joints and I use it for that an awful lot. But I also have over there what's called a glue line rip blade. So do as I do, not as I say here. Or do as I say, not as I do. Forgot to put that stiffener on. But I use a glue line rip blade. And I got it because I like doing box joints. And it's an 1/8 inch kerf, flat bottomed.
Flat bottom is
and that's what I need. But I have, I'm working on that cabinet over there, and I have a top and a bottom that I have to put on to that. So I glued the lumber up. It's all wide, but I have to rip it to width. And I have my jointer set up to a 32nd of an inch. And most of the time, I'm pretty good with that. But I'm not on this. I mean, if that 32nd isn't a 32nd, I'm not going to do that. So I have my glue line rip blade. I'm going to set that up, and I'm going to rip that to width with that glue line rip blade.
That on top.
Yeah, reset that.
Reset it for
Set the
the back to
maybe
your
the way
regular
stuck
blade
to
from the
fire.
Dado blade.
Oh,
Break that.
And the riving knife.
Put that Allen wrench.
that's what you do when you
Right
get
there with the magnet.
when you get to talking too much.
I will say, as far as changing blades out, the saw I had before was a Delta 1.5 horse contractor saw, old saw. It was a little underpowered for like 1.5 and up. Even sometimes 5/4, like ripping maple and stuff like that. So I bought a 24 tooth Freud thin kerf blade, and I used the blade stiffener like Dennis does. Completely changed that saw.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So it makes a big
it
difference.
sliced right through 1.5 oak, no problem. So I got into the habit of
Make the change. It's
just
worth
make the change, because otherwise you're sitting there trying to rip and it's burning and.
Well, I'm laughing because that's of course in my head right now. I'm like, I'll of course change the blade. And the moment it's like, I got an hour left, and this will be good enough.
The other thing I found, and Dennis is going to touch on this a little bit too, is just if you keep them clean, that's a huge deal.
Okay.
Yeah, and he'll touch on that here in just a second.
Another thing, it seems pretty obvious maybe, but maybe it isn't. And this is a Dave Larson thing. I didn't used to do it like this, but I used to just barely get my blade over the top of the saw. But if you see Dave, anytime he's cutting lumber, he's always raising that blade up until those gullets show. So that's something I learned from him, and I do that all the time now. So
The gullets, so that just better chip clearance.
yeah, I think it keeps the heat down, and I don't know where this all fits in, but I'm here at this point with that cabinet, and this here is all the test cuts I've done to get it to that point. So when it's important, do test cuts. You know, I'm making this out of sapelli, but I did buy a piece of poplar, and I planed it at the same time I planed that sapelli so that it's the same thickness. And so I'm constantly doing stuff and checking with the poplar before I go to the sapelli, and then you still have to buy. You just hope. I mean, but anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that don't be afraid to do test cuts, and spend the time doing them. You'll be happier. So
What do you save all your little scraps?
I do. Yeah. So this is that top and the bottom, and so I had glued this up, and for one thing, I just ran out of lumber. So it's sapelli, but it's just a different board and from a different group, but I only need about an inch. So I'm going to rip this, and that's going to be the back side. Yeah, but I am going to use that glue line rip blade just because it's a baby butt smooth cut when it's done. and I'll do a test cut to make sure on that width before I actually pull the trigger on that. My newest best friend, and who among you remember me being humiliated by him about dirty bits, router bits? Yeah, I think you do remember. So,
You deserved every bit.
oh,
And it's changed, it's been a life-changing moment, right?
it has. So, you all know I'm in on the shaper origin. I'm big on that.
Bring that up every
I do. I like you to hear it, Mike. They came out with a bit cleaner, and so when I'm using the shaper, I always clean my bits about after every use. So there's a couple of straight bits there. I'll go ahead and they're pretty crusty. So I'm going to put those in here and then turn that on. I don't know, I think it's about 8 minutes. I probably shouldn't have turned it quite that far. But anyway, it's like an electrostatic cleaner, I think is what it is. So when you're using the shaper, you get a lot of tape residue and stuff, and that just gums up the bottom of the bit, so you just need to get rid of it. No different than using a table saw blade and getting all that pitch. So my newest best friend, and you remember how I said about the tapering jig one time when I was doing that demo? I said, man, I didn't want to do it, and then as soon as I did it, I just loved it. Well, that's kind of the story here. I wasn't that big a fan of this to begin with, but man, I've used it now and it's nice. I have a bit in here, so I dang well don't want to tip that because it will leak. I found that out. So let's clean a blade real quick just to show you. So this is my Dado set, and if you can see that, this one I cleaned yesterday and this one I didn't, and this one was probably, I'll bet it was 5, 6, 7 times dirtier than this one is here. But I'm going to go ahead and clean this quick. So I love this thing.
You just started using it a couple weeks ago.
I did. But you know, the guys out in the store say a lot of times that some of these blades that get cleaned, if they would, or get sharpened, if they would just clean them, they probably didn't need to sharpen them. But I put it in there. There's a little pin there for the arbor. You just put it through there, and then you just spin it against the teeth. You don't do what I did and do it on your table saw.
The cardboard's a meaningful part of this process.
It is very meaningful in this particular instance because, you know, I'm just trying to be as efficient with the time as I can. But there we go, Mark. So a lot of times what I do is I'll go ahead and get in there while this side is up, even though the other side is what's getting worked on right now. And I'll just hit those teeth a little bit with the wire brush and give her a couple more spins. Check that bottom side. Sometimes I'll just scrape it right there. And man, I'm telling you,
So you're pushing against the bottom of that pan, which is taking some of the crud off?
yeah,
Is there like a brush in the bottom then? Or?
yeah, there is. There's a like a pad.
What kind of chemical is that?
Well, funny you would say that. Kim turned me on to that because I'd never heard of it, but it's called Simple Green, right?
It works really good on a lot of different things. Doesn't
Work
leave
with like
spots
hand
on
tools and
things.
stuff, like
Yeah.
degreaser?
Yeah. Just general purpose cleaner. It's supposed to be eco-friendly.
Say it has the word green in there, so clearly.
Yeah. Super safe.
Better than the carbon chloride I was using as a kid.
When they put the poison label right on it, you know?
Well, we sell a bit and blade cleaner that works really well, but it's very corrosive stuff. I mean, you gotta have gloves on, so this is a pretty neat deal.
I'm just gonna do that other side real quick, just a little bit, and then. But in actuality, it's like a 2 or 3, 4 minute thing, and you're done. I mean,
Plus, you're storing the solution in there, right?
and if it's a bad blade, put it in there and leave it sit for a while, and just tuck it away. So, it's one of those things that when I looked at it, I thought, where are you going to store that? I mean, it seems so big. But after using it, I'm telling you, then he's going to find a place to store it. Because it just makes life way more bearable. It's the same way with that shaper sharpener. Once I started cleaning my bits a little more often, it just made it so much better. And you know, for a long time I was using the bit and blade cleaner, which works fine, but you spray it on, then you have to let it sit and then brush it and then wipe it off. Well, this is, when I take that out of there, it's pretty well done. That's how you clean a blade with that. I love this thing now. I did not think I would say that.
I know, you kind of poo-pooed it for a while.
I did. I thought it was just, seemed like it was just too big to, where are you going to fit that? But I truly am going to find a place for it. And I think these will be clean enough.
What do you use for cleaner than that?
You know, I bought the shaper stuff. I don't know what it is. They recommend it, so I did it, but see, that's clean. Oh,
It's done.
it is done.
Brownies are done.
So, if you got router bits, this is a great way to go. I'll pull that router bit out of that one just so you see it, because that works too. And actually what I found is on a couple of my bits were pretty darn dirty, and I ended up leaving them sit in that solution overnight and then just come back the next day and you did them and they were fine. I mean, anything you can do to get a bit or a blade clean, you're just going to be better off in your shop, that's for sure. See, that one's pretty dirty. I'm going to get my brush here. And
Well, it's a nice holder too, in a way.
yeah, it is. This is a nasty, nasty bit.
Is that one that you had at that seminar that you showed everybody?
Might be. I don't know. This is a,
That was a bit and bowl tray. Bit. Or bowl. Yeah, bowl bit.
this one needs more help for sure though. So I'm going to use my shaper thing and clean that a little more and then have to brush it some more, because I mean, this one I'd used a long, long time without cleaning, so don't do that if you can keep from it.
So does this have that pad in the bottom too?
No, it's just a
Oh, okay.
drum. But I can't overemphasize that once you put liquid in there, don't.
Don't tip?
Yeah, I did that one time, you know. It only takes one time. You guys got any questions you want to pick on me about anything? I mean, this is just, it's how I use a table saw.
Do you do a lot of mitering on your table saw?
Mitering?
Yeah.
I do, and I actually use the Incra. This is a 1000 HD, but this is what I use for mitering with. Unless I also have a woodpecker cut-off sled, so I'll use that also. And I probably use that more for mitering than I do this now, since I have it. But I use this a lot when you get to that. I do a lot of charcuterie boards and that kind of thing. And anything over 11.5 inches on wide, it's just going to take a little bit more. And that's why I have that Infeed table, because that allows me to get out here and then cut through. So this little slot here, that's kind of interesting in that these three pieces here, they all have a notch in them to accommodate that molding. And I had to put that board, basically had to put that board up like this, clamped it down, and then I used my 3/8 inch.
It's your box cutter.
Yeah, and I had drawn where it needed to cut, set the height, and then I just whittled it away. And and I wanted a clean cut, so that's why I added this particular one on top of the existing fence, because it was a one and done kind of thing. So, but that's this is a nice fence. I've used it a lot over the years. You know, my box joint set, I love that thing. I do more box joints with the shaper now than I do the box joint set, but every so often I get that out just because I want to do it that way. There's that glue line rip blade. Man, it makes a nice cut. So it's pretty new. I actually bought it for this project. So if you're doing something that's important to you, you know, just try to use the best stuff you can. I mean, somebody was asking me earlier, we were talking, I said, well, I don't go on vacation, so that's how I choose to spend my money. Here's just so you know, that's the 1/8 inch pins. So this board buddy fits on like that. These Milescraft fence clamps then do that. So the one thing about, just so you know, is I had made this so obviously so that it wasn't any taller than the fence, but these holes are 3/8 inch hole that's 1 5/8 inch deep, and that's what will accommodate that that fence clamp, because you want that fence clamp to fully embed down in that hole. Otherwise it could just kind of, it's harder to tighten. So there we go on that. We're gonna set this so that we know it's the right height. So these are adjustable. This will raise it or lower it, and you want it, set it so that low enough that when you push that in there, it shouldn't rotate back. So, because the idea is you're pushing it down, but you don't want it coming this way. So just tighten it down enough. There, that should work. And once you get it set, because most of your using is going to be 3/4 or 1/2 inch or whatever, it's going to be whatever you're normally doing in your shop. You probably just set them once and you're done. If you needed to or wanted to, you could adjust them and slide them out a little further. You do have a little bit of play there. So like on my stock guides, you know, that had that rod that allowed it to go out a little ways. So on a wider piece, if I'm cutting a wider piece, I probably would have extended it a little further. But in this regard, now we can do the Dave Larson thing. And I'm not making fun of Dave when I say that. He's like an encyclopedia. Gee, many Christmas.
Oh, man.
So, what I can do is push this through. Now, the one thing that happens is it does kind of get in the way a little bit. So, I'm actually going to move these back just a little bit. Because if it were a wider board, I wouldn't have to do this, but this is a little bit narrower, and so there. Because what's going to happen is you got to have room to push and get a push block in there if you need to. So let's just do that. And since I like my featherboard so much, I'm going to use that. There you go. So let's cut that real quick. The other thing I didn't really mention is that when I'm ripping boards and stuff, I'm sure we all do it, but I definitely shift myself to the left a little. So if it's coming back, hopefully it's going to miss me. That's how the board buddies work, and they're a nice option. I mean, they're a nice unit. I use them quite a bit. I used to use them quite a bit here in the shop because I used to cut that lumber, that 60 by 60 lumber in here a lot, and I needed another set of hands. One thing I guess I will just do real quick here, just so you, because I need to do it anyway, is remember I told you whenever I change blades, I'm always making sure that that cursor's set. So I'm going to bring that in. So that's 3 inches. I just need to make sure that that's saying 3 inches there. And it looks like it does. Of course, this is the fence and the blade that I've had on it, so it's not unusual that it would be correct now, because this this is in the state I keep it in most of the time.
Do you occasionally adjust that, like if you use one of those sacrificial fences?
I do.
Set it?
One time, sometimes if I'm going to be using something where measurements are real critical, I might take the time to zero that out to the task I'm doing, so that if that needs to be, whatever I'm doing, it needs to be 3 inches, I want to know that that's 3 inches. So anyway, that's anytime you change blade, just make sure you check that. This is kind of how I live. That bowl right there, that is, if you guys watched that video of the Magswitch Quicklox, that's the bowl that I was using in there as a prop. I brought in the nested trays just to ooh and ah ya. That's my set. That I give a lot of stuff away, but not giving. Yeah, no, not today. I would just say, just be patient with your table saw and take the time to set it up right. Thank you all.